Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Rinaldi. I am the president of the Federation of Lucanian Associations in the United States. On behalf of the Federation, I want to welcome you all to today's webinar on purchasing property in Basilicata. This webinar is part of our Basilicata Roots program, which is designed to offer people in the United States valuable insights into the rich history, culture, and traditions of Basilicata and the people and the Lucanian people. Whether you're considering purchasing property to reconnect with your heritage or simply exploring opportunities in this beautiful region, we're thrilled to have you with us. I am especially delighted to introduce our distinguished speakers today. We have Antonio Nicoletti, Director General of APT Basilicata, which is the region's tourism organization. We also have Dottoressa Sonia and Anthony Alioto from Italian Law, which is a US-based legal firm specializing in, among other topics, Italian property law. They have helped many Americans navigate the legal aspects of owning property in Italy. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Antonio to get us started.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joe. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a region that when we talk about it all over the world, we define the new Italian wonder. It is an old region, a very old land with a very old history, but it is new for those who love Italy because it is not well known by international people, and foreign travelers. This means that every experience that one has with the region, it has something, some hints of marvel, the sense of discovering something new, and definitely a kind of distance from mass tourism, with plenty of space and wonderful and different landscapes. I will show you some photos, sharing my screen, starting from a definition. Basilicata is Italy as it had to be. This definition is not mine. It is the way Francis Ford Coppola described Basilicata when he came to Basilicata, where his family was from. He fell in love with a small village named Bernalda. He bought a premise in Bernalda and he transformed it into a luxury hotel with fantastic spaces, which resembles a Hollywood movie, one of his movies. So Italy, as it has to be, means that Basilicata keeps traditions, keeps genuinity, keeps food and tastes, which comes from a very old history that still has its value, even nowadays when modernity and hectic lives in metropolis are making us in the need of looking for something which keeps our well-being and our contact with nature. So first of all, where it is Basilicata? Basilicata is the ankle of the boot. It is in the heart of southern Italy, and it spreads just in the center, in this area, among Apulia region, Campania, and Calabria. So this heart, this red heart between Matera, Potenza, and Maratea, that has mountain, flatlands, and also two fantastic different beaches. This is an area which is which has all the quality of Italy, but also has the genuinity of authentic Italy that still is as we could just desire it. It is a land that has a double name, Basilicata and Lucania. Lucania is the old name that Latins gave to it. And before Latins, Greeks, when they arrived 800 years before Christ, they found people that they named enotri, which means people who knew how to make wine. And here, which is a fresco from the Vatican museums, you see the mountains. Basilicata has the highest mountains in southern Italy. We have peaks with snow during winter and even 3 places where to go skiing. We have hills, we have old villages where there is a rich availability of old buildings that have been abandoned because Basilicata, one plague of Basilicata is emigration. In the last 150 years, many people left Basilicata, so this has results in having villages which are fantastic villages in wonderful landscapes, but with many buildings that are available for sale. And the world is starting to discover Basilicata with big brands like Vogue or Forbes, putting Basilicata in the advices for traveling. So we forecast a growth in tourism development, international tourism development. And if I just say what happened with the American market from 2019, pre-COVID, to 2024, we had a boost of plus 60% of arrivals in the first, and this is a trend which is confirmed in the first half of 2024. If I had to say what is the characteristic of Basilicata, characteristic is the overwhelming nature. In Basilicata, you have 2 national parks, 3 regional parks, endangered species that live in a close by to villages, and diversity, which means biodiversity, but also cultural diversity and even food diversity from one village to the other is something that really is part of our DNA. The most famous city is Matera. Matera is one of the oldest cities in the world, one of the first 50 among the 50 best places of the world according to Lonely Planet Travel Review Award in 2022 by Booking.com, the most welcoming place in the world according to Booking, which means an attitude of our people to welcoming people coming from abroad. There is a nice article on the CNN telling the experience of a saxophonist from America who bought a property in Latronico in the province of Potenza, and he bought for maybe $20,000 800 square meters of a building, and he arrived there, was a bit he had a feeling of being overwhelmed by bureaucratic difficulties, but he was so much helped by the people that he stayed there, and he tells how he feels at home now in a new community where he feels to belong already. And there are villages where this is happening. There are communities of British people, American people in Irsina, in other places of the region. There are places where people buy premises just for retirement and enjoy a beautiful way of living of southern Italy and being close by to the environment. And even there are people who buy premises for just having a second house for holidays and spending some months of the year down there. So if I talk about Matera, Matera is a city carved into stone, a city UNESCO heritage since 1993. And what once were cave dwellings or cave churches or cave monasteries now are contemporary art museums, concert houses, hotels, restaurants, and by the way, it is one of the most romantic places in the world. It is a place where James Bond spent his honeymoon in the last movie, No Time to Die. All the first 20 minutes are played in Basilicata. He dives in Maratea Sea, and he lives and sleeps in Matera when he fights against bad people. This is just fiction. Matera for sure is very safe, and Basilicata indeed is one of the safest regions in Italy. So I go away. There is a long relationship between Matera and Hollywood movies. In these very days, there is Mel Gibson going around because he's working at a new film after The Passion in 2003. Now he is around our old city looking for new places. And here you see David Cronenberg. We have very often people coming through Francis Ford Coppola, or not through him, but going around, and you can meet them because it is a place, a misura d'uomo, we say, a good place for people to live. These are some examples of cave dwellings that now are hotels, where you have spas underground, and so just like other places in the region where the nature is always present. You have wilderness, you can go hiking, biking with e-bikes, and all the facilities that you can need for a wonderful experience and a wonderful authentic taste of Italy. On the other side, we have beaches which are stunning, like in Maratea. Maratea is on the Tyrrhenian Sea, 32 kilometers of coastline that it has not been exploited by buildings. This is very rare in Italy. It is one of the rarest places in Italy where men have not exploited nature. We have just a work of art, which is a statue of Christ that is the second tallest in the world after Rio de Janeiro. But the coast is as pure as it was during Roman times, where this was a Greek and then a Roman harbor. Maratea means the goddess of the sea. It is it is really a marvel. On the other part, we have Ionian coast, which is sandy and with dunes, and again with nature. It is a place where also we have villages which are close to the sea, and there is a fantastic agriculture, and such agriculture is very helpful for bringing to us good food that comes back from that comes from our rural tradition. They say we had a great rural civilization, rural culture, rural civilization. We also do have contemporary art. This is the slowest carousel in the world. It is actually a work of art by the German artist Karsten Oller, who arrived here and put this carousel, which is working actually. Those are my daughters on the up there in the photo, and it is very slow because once you go there, you are surprised of the slowness, and this feeling puts you in tune with the nature all around. It is in Pollino National Park, so it is just surrounded by mountains, and the pace that you have going around is just like the pace, the sound of the wind and the silence all around. We have theaters, we have museums of contemporary art, and all of these are in the middle of landscapes like this that you see, an ocean of clay or nature, or also activities for those who like adrenaline. The sea is 90% blue flag, which means very, very clean. You can meet dolphins, for instance, if you go sailing. And we have Tibetan bridges. We have the best water in Italy. We have an area in northern part of Basilicata where there was an old volcano, which is now not working anymore. But we have spring water, mineral spring water, sparkling spring water. In that area, we also have wine. It is Vulture area, where Frederick II, the emperor, based his stronghold in the late medieval, but also the area of the Roman poet Horace. We have the possibility of going with horse tourism and bike tourism, as I said, but I will conclude with some pictures going at the heart of Italian culture. Rural civilization, I said, has kept alive old and unique flavors that you cannot find anywhere else in Italy and in the world. Here we do have plates like that are cooked like they were centuries years ago. All traditions that are still alive. We organize cooking classes. Our old ladies, as in our tradition, are very willing to share that wisdom with cooking classes. And also we have cellars with a fantastic array of wines that already Horace at the time of the Roman Empire was talking about in his poems. So I conclude with this short introduction, and I hope that it was helpful and interesting for you, and I just give you the room. Joe, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. That is a fantastic overview of Basilicata, and it really gives us just a bit of a taste of this beautiful region that is truly authentic. And now I'd like to turn the floor to Sonia and Anthony Alioto from Italian Law. But before we dive into today's topic, Sonia and Anthony, could you share a bit more about the range of services you offer beyond purchasing property in Italy?
Yes, good day or good evening to everyone that's listening to us. My wife and I have been dealing with real estate issues, usually related to real estate issues, over the last 20 years, or maybe it's 21 now, I've lost track. In any case, services are continuity of thought in the manner in which one acquires property in Italy. And what that means is that if you come from a culture that has nothing to do with administrative law in Italy, you're going to be thinking differently. And so we try to correct one's thinking to understand how it's done in Italy administratively. And so there are cases, we have many clients who have essentially used us for inheritance purposes. In this case, we're not going to talk about that, but those that wish to acquire title to property. And acquiring title to property is something we do every day, in the sense of our website, italianlaw.net, is the accoglienza, the welcoming point for people to call us and ask questions about how do I do this and how do I do that and how do I. So, but people essentially are looking for real estate and either to inherit it because it's in their grandfather's name, their grandmother's name, or somebody's name, and by law, they could inherit the property. So that's one way of taking title to property, and that's a process that we know about. But today we're going to talk about wandering into the area and how do you do that? Well, the process is essentially I go to the internet and I see all these places for sale. Okay, that's one way. The other way is to fly to Italy and go to this wonderful place. I've never seen such a good presentation. I want to leave tomorrow morning to go there. It's so exciting. So, Antonio, thank you for the work you've done on the film. So if you are there and you are walking around looking for property to buy, well, there will probably be, I have never been there, but I assume it's like any other place in Italy where we have real estate agents offering their for sale their client's property. So you look in the window, you say, oh, I like that property over there. What is it? Where is it? How much does it cost? And so you start to engage a real estate company. That's your traditional thinking, which is fine. Okay. So you're asking me about the services, and I don't know if I should go into a little bit more detail. What do you believe at this point?
Yes, so just maybe summarize the categories, like you mentioned inheritance law, citizenship, I believe you handle that as well.
That's true.
Just so that if any of our participants have other legal matters that they want to pursue, just knowing what services you offer, just a summary of them would be great.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. So Italian inheritance law, Sonia is the specialist in that area. And it can't be addressed easily because everybody's got their own situation. And we have to hear from clients. And then once we hear from clients, we can tell them you need this document, the other document, or you have everything and how to proceed, engaging the Italian council of your area. But citizenship, we'll have to put that aside because it's very personal, you might say. The business of inheritances are essentially a matter of law, legge, or testate or intestate. There's a will, there's no will. But if we keep this simple, usually Italian of yesteryear do not write wills. Usually, okay, there are exceptions, of course. And this would be a case of a testate succession, meaning we address the issues by filing in Italy with the will. Most of the cases are without the will, okay, which means the law says who inherits the property. So that's a subject we handle regularly.
Right, and also still in the real estate, subject, as Anthony mentioned earlier, we assist our clients who are interested in buying or also selling property. So we prepare all the documents that are preparatory to the transfer of title, such as powers of attorney, preliminary contracts, and first, which is actually essential in the process, we ascertain the legality of the title. So we start with the research in using the tools that we can access thanks to our agreement with the Italian government, with the tax authority, Agenzia delle Entrate, that gives us access to the tax authority database, Conservatoria and Catasto.
The two databases that we rely on to give us the truth on the historical nature of the property. So if you're going to buy a piece of property, you want to know there are no clouds on the property.
And we often represent our clients in Italy when they have to file a transfer of title as their attorneys, in fact. So essentially, we assist those who are interested in transferring property in Italy one way or the other during the entire process. I want to say something about citizenship. It's another important part of our job. Yes, it's personal because it really depends on your on one's situation, but we assist those that are of Italian descent to claim their Italian citizenship. First of all, again, this is the first step, ascertain that they are entitled to claim Italian citizenship because they are of Italian descent, and there was no interruption of their descendants, let's say. I want to explain that better. Italian law provides that if your Italian-born ancestor did not naturalize before the immediate descendant was born, then all the descendants are entitled to claim Italian citizenship. There are exceptions. There are issues with the female side, but this is the the essence of the concept for claiming Italian citizenship. And we also see those that want to establish residence in Italy to claim Italian citizenship, or wants to establish residency because they are interested in living in Italy, but they are not of Italian descent. So in that case, if they live in Italy continuously for 10 years, they can claim Italian citizenship after 10 years. And obviously, they have to choose where to live. So we always advise our clients to find a place that is not too touristy, or it's not the usual touristy place, such as Florence or Venice. We prefer to send our clients to places like Basilicata, for example.
Excellent, thank you. Now, Anthony, you had started to talk about the process for purchasing property, and you had mentioned you see a property, you fall in love with it, you want to purchase it. Then what happens then? They contact you, and what happens? What are the steps after that?
Okay, if somebody falls in love with the property, either because they see it in the real estate, in the vitrina, in the window. Typically in Italy, real estate companies have their properties for sale well presented. So they say, what about that property? And I want to say immediately here, before it gets out of hand, in the sense that we forget an important detail. One must know the procedure, because with the US mindset, at least, you're going to think, well, it's going to be more or less the way we do it in Italy. And I would say immediately, no, because we do not have title companies in Italy. We have in the figura, we have what's called a notaio. Okay, so he's kind of the final say on some operations when it comes to the transfer of title from a buyer to from a seller to a buyer. So one of the errors, we have a few clients that have made this error, and I want to bring this forth because, if you're thinking American or you're thinking Canadian, so, well, I'm going to tell this real estate person that I'm interested in that particular property. And we say, well, don't sign a contract unless you know what you're talking about, because there are clauses in there. Okay. But essentially, from a practical standpoint, we have two clients now that have, well, good faith money. I like that property. The real estate person says, okay, if you want to show good faith, give me some money. That is a down payment. Error, big error, because you cannot back out without some. Real estate company is very honest and very flexible, and they don't want to lose the commission. So the words to learn is, before you hand any money over to anybody, you have to have what's called a contratto preliminare, which sounds like preliminary contract, which it is, which means the buyer and the seller agree on every single detail. Property located on map 47, the third floor, and the price that we agree upon is X. And at that point, if that document is prepared, you can then move forward with money, because the buyer and the seller have agreed to every single detail. Just giving the money to a real estate person in good faith without that agreement between the parties is not advisable. I wouldn't do it. So the procedure is agree on everything. Then you can go to il rogito, which means the close of escrow, because everybody fully agrees. And so the word of warning is, do not hand out money until you have first a contratto preliminare, which is preceded usually by what Sonia was saying, una visura catastale. In other words, we do research to see that there are no clouds on the property even before venturing into that point. Okay, because on title we might have, for example, 4 co-owners, of which 2 are alive and 2 are deceased, grandfather, grandmother, still on title. And that property is not for sale, because deceased parties cannot come from the ground and sign a document. It's obvious. So what you want to do is you do a title search first. We do this, by the way, for our clients, and we see, that's nice and clean. The people are alive, and there are no other clouds on the property, and therefore we can move in the direction of coming up and writing. Sonia writes these documents to contratto preliminare, which says buyer and seller agree to everything, At that point, you can start to think about putting a down payment down, and how that's done is another story. But essentially, do not hand out money until one has a contratto preliminare where the parties are locked in at the hip. And that means if you pull out, it's going to cost you. I mean, if one pulls out, either the buyer or seller pull out, by law, they are entitled. The other party is entitled to have remuneration for changing your mind. So that's why when I say locked at the hip, that means the buyer and the seller, tramite contratto preliminare, they're locked and married together. So you don't, until you have that document, you don't put out any money.
Yes, but the contratto preliminare also should be prepared by an expert. Don't let the realtor prepare the contratto preliminare.
Yeah.
The realtor is supposed to stay in the middle between the buyer and the seller, but the realtor wants to close a deal. So it's important to be assisted by a legal expert when you sign a contratto preliminare. And when Anthony mentioned that there are possibly clouds, there may be clouds in the title, it means that sometimes we, especially in areas that have been abandoned for a long time, with the immigration, high, let's say, a number of immigrants that abandoned left their property behind, situations in which the person sells the property that is not in his name, on her name. They claim adverse possession on that property and they sell it, not because they are the formal or the legal owners, but because they say they acquired it by adverse possession. But later on, if the real owner shows up, then you have problems with that property that you have acquired based on the word of the seller. So it's important to make sure that there are no issues with the title.
In other words, we do a lot of homework before we tell somebody to buy property. In fact, we have one person I'm thinking of, we told her, do not buy that property. Do not. She listened to us, didn't buy it. Unbeknownst to us, 2 months later, she says, I found another property. I'm in the process of buying it. I realize I'm paying too much money. I want my money back. We are now in court. So she didn't follow the rule. Contratto preliminare is the most important document that says everybody agrees on everything.
Yes, and the research, a thorough research on the title.
That's following research before we even get to that point.
Now, do you need to be an Italian citizen to own property in Italy?
No, you don't have to be an Italian citizen. Anybody can buy property in Italy. There are no special conditions. There's only an advantage to buy property in Italy, residential property, when you are an Italian citizen, because you can have a benefit from a reduction on transfer taxes. Transfer taxes are 9% of the cadastral value of the property. The cadastral value is not as high as what is not usually lower than the market value, but still 9% can be an important amount of money that you have to spend to buy the property. So if you are an Italian citizen, even if you live abroad, can purchase residential property as what we call prima casa, your first home in Italy, even if you are not going to reside in Italy. However, the law changed in 2023, at the beginning of last year. So now you can buy property, residential property, as your first home, prima casa, only if you have lived in that place for 5 years in the past, which could be the place where you were born, or you have resided, or you have worked, but for 5 years at least. Anyway, there is this advantage, let's say, in these cases. If you have never have lived in Italy, then you can certainly buy and enjoy your property. But if you're not an Italian citizen, then you cannot stay more than the time that is you are allowed to stay based on a touristy visa essentially, or a regular visa that you can obtain from the Italian consulate. So otherwise, there are no restrictions to buy property.
So then if it is not considered a prima casa in Italy, then I'm assuming that has tax implications. You're taxed at a higher rate.
Exactly. There is also this issue of the it's an issue because you're going to spend more if you do not live in that house. So one thing is the transfer of the title as prima casa, and another tax is the real estate tax that you pay every year. IMU. So if you do not reside there, even if you purchase the property as prima casa, because you are an Italian citizen and you meet certain requirements, you may still pay regular real estate taxes on that property if you do not reside there. So the reduction on IMU is only for those who use the residential property as their residency, or if they live in the same city and they have that property, still in their name. But if you live abroad, you cannot benefit from the reduction on IMU for prima casa.
And what about tax implications in the U.S.? Are there tax implications in the U.S. if you have a property in Italy or foreign?
Well, you have to declare that you have purchased property in Italy when you file your income tax return. You have in the US, yes. You have to declare that, and that may have an impact on your income tax return, but it doesn't necessarily do, because only if you make money out of that investment, then yes, you have to declare all your income to the IRS. Where exactly, because you rented out property, you're renting out property, so you are making money, and you have to declare that to the American tax authority. But you also have to declare it in Italy. So if you rent property in Italy, you have to pay income taxes. You have to file an income tax return in Italy. But because there is an agreement between Italy and the US, you can then, in the filing your income tax return in the US, subtract the taxes that you have paid in Italy. Because of this income that eliminates double taxation.
It's a form of a credit in your US file.
Exactly. If the property is not rented, then there's nothing, there are no taxes essentially, but you still need to declare that you have purchased property in Italy. Like you declare that you have a bank account, for example.
I see. And so I'm assuming that you would be required to set up bank accounts in Italy, and that's all required, and you would assist with that type of service as well?
Yes, although I have to say it is not easy to open a bank account in Italy for a US citizen or resident, because of the amount of bureaucratic tasks that the bank has to go through when they open a bank account in the name of a US citizen or resident, due to the agreement between Italy and US that I think goes back to 2015.
I'm talking about conto estero, which means you don't live there in Italy, but you still have a bank account in Italy, and you still can access it online. It's very modern. You can pay your taxes online, and twice a year. And if you don't pay for the last 3 years, you still can go back in time and pay with a bank account entitled Party A, Party B, Conto Estero, because you're not living in Italy. It's a foreign account, but it's there, but you are foreigners in the sense that you're out of the country, and you can access typically the digital banking system and pay whatever you got to pay. The lights, the electricity, you can do all those things online. It's not simple if you're not Italian, but it can be done. We do this, some of this for some of our clients, we pay the taxes for them because they don't have a bank account from yesteryear, they never, and so we have to help them in that sense. So
So
there's a lot to say.
we hear all of this buzz about you can buy a house in Basilicata for €1, and could you please clarify if that's really true and what are the implications of that? What is required on your part? Obviously, it sounds too good to be true, and don't know if it is or isn't true. Could you?
Well, it is, yeah,
is true.
it is true. They started in Sambuca, I believe, in Sicily to do that. I know they have a similar planning. They do a similar, similar offers in France. But there are restrictions. I mean, restrictions. You have to then remodel the property or rebuild it because property that are sold for €1 are usually properties that are round down.
You got to remodel a place in 5 years.
Oh, that's
5 years,
really
but certainly
Maybe
yes,
it's 4 years, I'm not sure, but essentially you have a time slot in which to bring the property up to code. So obviously, if you need to replace the roof, you need to put new plumbing in, the electrical panel is not up to code anymore. So you can have it for $1, but you might spend 30, 20, 30, 40,000 to have professionals go in there and bring it up to code because it has to be up to code. And therefore, there's an investment. So it's $1, yes, today, or actually $1. E costa €1 oggi, ma domani si paga per la ristrutturazione. You pay to remodel the place and bring it up to code. So that's true, but there's an investment.
Antonio, we know Basilicata is full of small villages and smaller cities, and a lot of these villages and towns are remote. How easy is it to line up contractors to, and are there utilities available going to these homes? Is that something that's very easy to get around, or is it monumental?
Well, there are, as it is a practice that is taking ground more and more in our region, there are companies, there are professionals who are working close to international buyers. So there are some who are developing attitudes to deal and to cope with the needs that someone coming from far away can have in purchasing properties and doing works. I can add that in each small village there are technical figures that are very competent and are willing to, they know very well the how to deal with permissions, with projects, with the relationships with the city council for having licenses for whatever. So as I was telling you the story of the saxophonist from America, even if at the beginning something might seem more difficult, of course, it is a different language, it is a different place, far away from the place we're from. But in the end, there is a kind of mechanism who just opens up and deploys all the facilities that you need for in order to cope with any kind of difficulty. It is a part of the welcoming attitude that we have. And you just keep in mind that our communities, as small as they are very, very much proud of welcoming people from abroad. There is a kind of pride that, I don't know in other parts of Italy, we are not talking about Rome, Florence, Venice, where you have fun markets, crazy markets like in the big, I don't know, I guess in the big American cities. Here you have small market and people who is keen to be available and help. I don't know if this is if it makes sense in English. I'm sorry for some.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just.
clear.
Thank you.
No, it's clear.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Antonio. And just kind of on a related note, do you know of any municipalities in Basilicata that offer any kind of concessions or are actively promoting this foreign ownership of some of their older homes or abandoned homes?
Well, now there is a kind of a fashion of providing houses at €1, as it was mentioned before. So there are many municipalities who have launched public calls for €1 premises. There are some of them that have been forward in the experience. So there are places where there are people settled, foreign people who bought, who restored, and who have settled. I feel bad if I just have to say one instead of another. I mean, because it might seem doing advertise, but I don't want to seem like that. There is a practice that if you just browse on the internet, you might find something about it, where we have already a number of people who come from many places of the world, which is the city of Irsina, and in Irsina, that is in the middle between Matera and Vulture area, Vulture mountain, they have maybe a lot of experience in that, but also in the Vulture and Alto Bradano area, there are municipalities that have gathered together and they provide facilities in a joint way, because we are talking about villages of 3,000 people, 2,000 people, even less. 80%, 85% of Basilicata cities are less than 5,000 inhabitants. So you have an idea of what I am talking about.
Well, that's great. I think we're coming close to the end of this webinar. Was there anything else, Sonia and Anthony or Antonio, that you would like to add before we close off?
Well, yeah.
There is, but we don't know what it is yet.
Well, I mentioned that we try to invite our clients who are interested in buying property in Italy to look for a place they like in Basilicata, or in other regions that have similar traits, because they're not they're not too touristy, and there is this taste of authenticity, of genuinity, as Antonio mentioned earlier. And I think that's more enjoyable than a crowded city, that you can always reach for, a day or two of vacation. But if you want to find a place where you can spend your summer, or even, a few weeks every year, we think that the best places are Basilicata. Basilicata has so much to offer that I think that should be the first choice.
I have an idea which just come to mind now for Antonio, especially. I follow the communications that go back and forth for people that are desirous of doing something in Italy, such as, becoming a citizen, or they want to buy a place. Where do you suggest I live? Which is the best environment, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody talks about Matera. However, that's only because we're still uncovering the necessities of investigating in this area. And one of the things I see as a common thread, and this is for Antonio to take into consideration. So I'm going to buy a place. There's only 800 people in the town. I feel isolated. My Italian is almost non-existent or not good at all. And so the question that comes up in the blog is, how many people are English-speaking people with whom I could associate myself with in order not to feel lonely? So, of course, the answer would be, well, in this area, there are 67 Brits, 27 Americans, and Australians or Japanese or whatever, okay? If you had that number out there, one would feel that they're going to not only buy, but also find somebody with whom they could communicate and not feel left out because, non parlo italiano e poi ci sono problemi sociali, diciamo. There's, there are issues with feeling comfortable in your purchase, not only from the bureaucracy, but also from the community that will accept them slowly. But I don't want to take 10 years for them to get to know me. I want to be next to another Brit. He also speaks English. He plays cards. He does, or an Australian or an American or whoever. Is that number available, Antonio? Probably not. So if you want to go out there and wave a flag for this area, I want to feel comfortable about buying it, and we'll help you there. But I want to know who else is what property in that area and where are they from? Are they English speakers, in other words, or Spanish speakers?
Thank you very much. I tell you three things. One, the first is that we, as an agency, we are an agency, public agency for territorial promotion. So we are working at a project dedicated for the promotion of the purchase of real estate by international people. So there is a project that is going on. We are working at it. And I think that in the coming months, we will have the possibility to provide more information, as you said, like this one that you are just raising now. The other two things that I would say is that is the experience of Francis Ford Coppola. He arrived to Bernalda when he was a fresh of success of The Godfather. So he was very young. He didn't know any word of Italian. He just was wandering around Europe and decided to go to discover his roots, going to Bernalda without knowing anyone, just the stories that his grandmother told him when he was a child. He arrived there. He didn't know anyone. He asked by the street the name of his grandfather and grandmother, and in few minutes he was overwhelmed by the welcoming of people. He met his cousin, pro cousin, I don't know, third generation cousin, who hosted him, lending him his own bed, and he slept on a sofa. This is the story of Francis Ford Coppola. And this, what I want to mean is that communities are able to speak and to embrace without speaking English, even without speaking in English. The third thing that I want to say is that English is becoming more common. So you have Italian speaking in English at different grades. And coming to your point, in the places where we have small communities of foreign people, the social outcome of what's going on is that such communities just reproduce the kind of Italian way of living, inviting people, sharing tea, cafe, or wine, doing dinner together, chatting and doing passeggiata, the famous Italian passeggiata. They are embracing our traditions. So there are new communities that are English speaking, even if they are small, but they are growing in the places where these such people come and settle. So there are these dynamics that are going on, but the base is what is always a very old tradition that dates back to millennia. There is Joe, I don't know if you heard about this. At the time of the ancient Greeks coming to Lucania and to southern Italy, there was a public law that was compelled people to welcome foreigners, to open the door to foreigners. And someone say that this is our attitude because it comes from our cultural DNA of centuries and centuries ago.
I didn't know about it, but it's fascinating, and it certainly summarizes the hospitality that I'm used to, being from Basilicata and communicating with Lucanians from around the world. So, well, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of today's webinar. I want to sincerely thank all of you for joining us. Your participation shows the growing interest in connecting with Basilicata, whether through property ownership or simply getting a deeper appreciation of the region. I want to give a special thanks to our speakers, Antonio Nicoletti, Dottoressa Sonia and Anthony Alioto, for sharing your invaluable expertise and experience. And really, it was very interesting and fascinating that there are a lot of considerations that need to be addressed. And if you're going to do this, it's best to do it right, because it's very difficult to get out of it later on. So thank you very much for that deeper understanding of both the opportunities and the responsibilities. And then finally, on behalf of the Federazione Lucana of America, I hope today's session has given you a solid foundation to take the next steps in your journey to Basilicata. We look forward to staying connected and supporting you in any way that we can. Best of luck and goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Grazie, thank you very much.
Ciao.
Buonasera, buongiorno.